Kris Ashley. Welcome to the Fieldswell Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am so pumped. So, for our listeners, Kris and I are on the same podcast network with the Los Angeles Tribune, and we're on weekly calls together. And so, we've learned so much about one another throughout those calls, like from a distance, but now we really get to get into it. And I am so excited.
Yeah, and we met in person finally in LA, which was awesome.
We did. We met at it was at the Barnes & Noble event, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Super fun event.
Yeah. We're forming deep roots, Kris.
We have so many similarities. Like we're so on the same vibe. Even like we were both horseback riders and just, I don't know, we both like Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Love Dr. Joe and also yogis. We're both yogis.
Oh yeah, you said you did teacher training. That's awesome.
Did my teacher training in New York City at Yoga Works in Soho.
Nice.
And you started your own yoga studio?
I just sold my yoga company in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, it felt really good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure. So for our listeners, Kris, she also has a podcast called Change Your Mind. We're going to get a lot into mindset and the power of our thoughts. Kris is an author, speaker, coach, and TV host, doing all the things. And to start us off, Kris, I'd love for you to kind of share with us the journey you took into personal development. I know that was deeply personal to you, and you've kind of opened up about that. Talk to us about what led you on the path to looking inward and beginning that journey into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is like downpouring outside. So I don't know if you have these like calming, like rain vibes in the background. So if you're like, why is there water running? That's why. It's really lovely though. Okay. So my journey, like so many other people who are coaches or healers or psychologists, my own healing journey, my own journey into spirituality and helping others started with my own trauma. So when I was 12 years old, I was sexually abused by a family member for 4 years. And I had this really big, tight-knit, extended Italian family. And when they found out what happened, many of them disowned me. And I was getting calls and letters from family members telling me they didn't love me anymore and I wasn't their family anymore. And it was to the point where like holidays were divided. Like on Christmas, my parents and I would take mornings and the family of my abuser would take afternoons. And it was crazy. And as you can imagine, this set me into a downward spiral, right? Like I had PTSD. I had all of these low vibration emotions like anger and guilt and shame that as a young adolescent, I didn't know how to cope with. Like most adults don't know how to cope with those emotions, right? And so I was getting in trouble at school. I was self-harming. I was doing drugs. I was in a really dark place. And then my world totally changed when someone handed me a book. And it changed my way of thinking and being and understanding life and the universe and reality. And I remember turning those pages and just feeling like a sleeper agent, right? Like something inside of me just woke up and it just felt like truth. And then when I finished that book, I started reaching for more. And I just became insatiable. I was devouring every metaphysical, spiritual, new age, personal development book I could get my hands on. I started attending workshops and retreats. I found teachers to study under. I was doing all these healing modalities, and my life totally did a 180. I thought I was uncovering these secret mysteries of the universe, but I was really doing a lot of hard inner work too. And as my life started to change, my mother started to get worse because her family had been ripped down the seams and she didn't have these books and teachers and healing modalities that I did. And so it started to manifest as physical illness. She got cancer, she got hepatitis, she got all of these weird ailments that her doctors had never even heard of before. And so they did what they do. They gave her pills. Then they gave her pills for the side effects of those pills, right? And at the height of it, she was on a fentanyl patch. She was on Dilaudid, which is a narcotic. She was on like 11 pills a day. And she would, forget conversations we had the day prior. She would fall down all the time. She would fall asleep at the dinner table. She would sleep for all but a few hours of daylight. And that lasted almost 15 years. And so I had this compounded guilt that I had destroyed my family and broken my mother. But I always like to say that my mother was my biggest teacher, because for every step that she took deeper into depression and illness and victimization, I climbed in the other direction out of that tunnel,
Yeah.
because I saw firsthand in front of me what happens to a human body and spirit when they make that choice, because I really think it is a choice. And then I saw what was happening to my own body and spirit as I changed my mind, which is why my book is called Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And so I made a promise to myself that I would do everything I could to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I would always prioritize my health in those categories. And it's a promise I've kept to this day. I'm still, the work is ongoing, right? Like,
Yeah.
no one's perfect. No one's healed. You know that. So I'm still reading every book. I'm still attending every workshop, like going to every course like you are. And I finally got to a point after a couple decades of doing all this study under teachers and self-study that I wanted to give back. So I took a life coaching program with Mary Morrissey, whom I love, and I launched my podcast. I wrote my book, and it's just kind of taken off from there.
Amazing. Here you are, like beyond year 20 of your spiritual development journey. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks
And
for
it just
asking.
sheds light on like there are two paths to really healing, like the hard, tedious, like inner work, this holistic approach to health and well-being, which ultimately is life-giving, but it takes time and it takes commitment. Or there's the approach to where you maybe go to a doctor and they prescribe you all these medications and say, take this pill and like you'll be fine.
Totally. And I think that symptoms, like physical symptoms, are actually just messages from our body. And I liken it to like if your house is on fire and your smoke detector is going off, like you could take the batteries out of it, right? Like you could take a pill and mask it, but like the fire is still going on, right? Like you have to feel all those repressed emotions. You have to deal with what's in your unconscious, your belief systems, everything you've kind of pushed down, because the way out is through, right? Otherwise, you're just masking things, but eventually that starts to form disease in your body.
Yeah. What was that book that changed your life? The
It's
first
called
book
The
that you read?
Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life. Have you heard of it?
I haven't. The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life.
Yeah, it's I have it right over my bookshelf. So it's a two-part book. Like part one is in like one book. It's like chapter like 1 through 8 is in book one, and chapter 9 through whatever.
Okay.
And what that book did really well, and this is what I try to do in my book too, is it planted seeds. So from that book, I learned about Zachariah Sitchin, and I learned about Dolores Cannon, and I learned about Greg Braden, and I learned about the Emerald Tablets, so it was like there was so much, and it gave me so many seeds to follow or crumbs to follow. And
Yeah.
I followed all of them, right? Like I went down
Amazing.
rabbit holes in all of them, and then I found more rabbit holes from those. So that's what I really appreciated, where it was
Yeah.
like, oh, reality can be something totally different than what we're told. We don't have to accept this default reality that we've been given.
Yeah. I mean, I believe we each create our own reality by the story we're telling ourselves about what's going on in our lives or what has happened to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And like so much of it happens before we're even at the age of 7, right? Like kids are in like theta brainwave mode, right? They're hypnosis. They're literally sponges downloading
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. And we
So
believe that like our parents know everything. And so we just
yeah,
like adopt our thought process and our belief about the world based on what we've been told by our primary caregivers.
totally. And like I'm a new mother, and it's something that I'm really trying to be careful of, because you might not even mean to do harm, but if you tell a kid like, "Oh, you're so smart," or "Oh, you're good at math," or "Oh, you're a bad singer," like anything they can like really grasp onto,
Mhm.
and it can form their inner voice. So
Yeah.
you have to be like really it's a lot of pressure
It
to
is a
raise
lot of
small
pressure,
humans.
right? Because I mean, I would imagine like you would defer to like knowing what you know about neuroplasticity and the power of how you speak to someone, especially a child who is a sponge, like that you want to be overly optimistic, but like what's the balance of the positivity versus like reality for them?
I literally was just looking at Instagram before this, and there was a post that was like, "Don't tell your kids they're smart, like, because it makes them think like, oh, I am this thing, so when I fail at something, I must be stupid." Right? They like assign it. So instead, it's like praise their efforts.
Hmm.
So then they always have like a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. That's what it
Okay.
was.
Yes, growth mindsets are very important. So
Yeah.
the book that changed my life was The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. Have you read that book?
That's one of the few that I haven't read yet,
Oh
and
my
I
gosh.
can't tell you how many people have recommended it, so it's on my
Please
list.
read it. It is so good. To our listeners, please read it. The one of the main messages that Singer makes is it's up to us to either enjoy the experience of being alive or to continue to be bothered by it. And it
Mm.
has to do with this like having a mindset where you're a victim of everything that has happened to you, or you're a visionary of the future you want to create for yourself. And so this is the power of choice, and we all have that. Like, how do we want to view our lives and our realities? Talk to us about, like, was there a mindset shift for you that helped you take back your power?
I think it was I don't think it was any one thing. I think it was just that slow like burn of like trying all these healing modalities, learning from all of these teachers. But just to speak to what you were saying about victimhood, like it almost feels trendy nowadays to be a victim, right? Especially on social media, because you can when you blame other people and outside events for your suffering, like you get to play small, right? You get to avoid feeling guilty, you get to avoid doing the hard inner work, right? You get pity, you can be the martyr, all of these things, but you don't get to step into your own power and truly heal. So I've so many guests come through my show where that kind of becomes the resounding message, because yeah, like you said, it's all about like a growth mindset, and you can either become the creator of your life or the passenger.
Yeah. I used to believe hurt people. But what I believe now is like we've all been hurt, right? Like
Mhm.
being human is like having these really difficult experiences and feeling that pain, and then like feeling the pain enables you to feel like the joy and the love even higher, because you're like, this is what it means to be human. Like we're all going to eventually get hurt, whether it's a breakup, a job loss, an illness, what have you. And so what someone else said, they were like, it's the hurt people who don't choose to do the work to heal themselves and get better. Those are the individuals who end up hurting others. Like we all are hurt at some point. But to try and pinpoint, like, what is it about the individuals that end up hurting others? Because you learn so much. Like, it's not me. It's nothing to do with me. It's something that they're going through that's causing them to lash out and act in this way.
Totally. Like the other side of that quote that I always say is hurt people, but healed people heal people.
Yeah.
And those people who have done the inner work are people like you or people like me that are out there trying to help others so that other people don't have to suffer for decades like we did, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it really is like, it's not one moment where you're like, I'm completely healed. You realize this is like a lifelong journey. The work never stops because we're going deeper, we're expanding, we're learning more like modalities and tools. What have been some of your favorite like daily routines, rituals, practices that have really changed your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do a lot. I'm like totally a biohacker. I think um, physical modalities have been really, really helpful for me. Things like dynamic meditation has been amazing. If you can exhaust your body and mind to the point where it shuts off and you can just feel everything coming through, yoga has been that practice for me as well. But I think also just allowing myself to like feel things when they come up, and to really take a look at like why am I reacting in the way that I'm reacting, right? Why am I thinking the thoughts that I'm thinking? And to be really self-reflective in that kind of way, whether it's through journaling or meditation, um, and just being like more self-aware, and also gaining knowledge that there are a million ways that you can look at something. And if you shift your perspective, it will completely change your life,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't have to hold on to grudges. You can forgive people. You can let things go. You don't have to be triggered, right? There's other ways to respond, or
Yeah.
not even have to respond, to just let things roll
Yeah.
off.
To like release and let go. Um and realize that all these grudges you're holding and like anxieties and angers, like they're affecting you more than they're hurting the other person oftentimes. And so to do yourself a favor and like center, calm, release, and pick up some of these different practices, yoga, meditation, reading, journaling, listening to podcasts like this or books that can really help you like understand what's going on and how to calm your central nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said earlier, like when people are rude, like most people aren't going through life trying to create like chaos and havoc for you or trying to hurt you, right? Like everyone's just so wrapped up in their own stuff, in their own head.
Yeah.
They're lashing out because of their own pain and their own fear. And what you're doing is you're taking it personally, right? You're like,
Mhm.
how is this affecting me? And once you realize to not take things personally, like the Four Agreements is another one of my favorite books. Like if you can learn to not take things personally and realize that like no one's doing things because of you,
Mhm.
it's so freeing.
Yeah. They're all going through their own melodrama.
Yeah, there's this amazing poem I love by Lane Thomas, and there's this quote in it that says, "No one's really judging you when you walk in a room, and all they want to know is if you're judging them." And I just
Wow.
love that so much because it gives me goosebumps every time
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, everyone's just worried about themselves.
Mhm, mhm. And learn we have more in common than we do that separates us, and to kind of walk in with an open heart and instead of feeling like I think we have this desire to like prove ourselves or like be
Mhm.
right and instead just like learn from everyone around you. Observe
Yeah,
what they're going through.
you literally don't have to be right or prove anyone else to be wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact, like you would have so much more peace of mind if like you didn't believe that.
Right. It's so true. I think it's
Yeah.
ingrained in us when we're little. So I want to hear more about your book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, which explores the power of our thoughts. Talk to our listeners about how powerful our thoughts actually are.
I mean, your thoughts are incredibly powerful. You create your own reality. And it all stems from your belief system, which is that unconscious programming that we talked about, which influences your thoughts, which influences the emotions you feel. And emotions are sent out on a vibration, a frequency, their energy and emotion. So if you're feeling like high emotions of gratitude and joy and authenticity, you are going to attract more of that into your life, right? Like I just made an Instagram post today that's like, there's so much like fear, like there's so much in the world right now that you could have fear of, right? But the universe is like the Facebook algorithm. Like whatever you focus on, whatever you get emotional about, especially like triggered by, it's like, oh, I like that. Like I'm going to send a little more of that their way. And so you end up in this perpetual cycle.
Mhm.
So there are always like trillions of options available. You can create your own reality. And when you focus more on the reality that you want to bring into existence and less on the reality that doesn't serve you or is fear-based, you can really create the life of your dreams.
Mhm. So, as a coach, what are some of the biggest mental blocks you see people struggle with, and how do you help them shift from a low vibe like fear, jealousy, anger into more high vibe um, frequency?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing I see is people getting defensive, right? They're like, how can I create my own reality? Like, I've gone through this, that, and the other thing, or like my ancestors have gone through this. Like, everyone, as you pointed out, goes through things, right? Every family's tree has a story. Um, but healing is a choice, and I personally so I do a lot of spiritual coaching as well, and I personally believe we choose big life events before we incarnate because they ready the soil and plant the seed for us to grow for us to grow and learn the lessons that we need to. But it's up to us if we grow, right? We have free will. So you can either go through something and become more unconscious and bitter and resentful at the world, or you can go through challenges and forgive and get better and grow. Because for every tragedy, every heartbreak in life, there is a hidden Easter egg. And once you learn it, once you find it, tremendous healing, growth, up leveling takes
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
So, we always have challenges we're going to go through. Just because we're like, quote unquote, awakened doesn't mean life's going to stop happening. But once you have this mindset and these tools, you have better tools for the next time something happens, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get as triggered. You're not going to fall back into that place of victimhood.
Yeah.
You're going to fail forward.
Yeah. A great question to ask yourself. What is this here to teach me? As
Yeah.
opposed to, why did this happen to me? Why me? Woe is me, poor me. Instead, what is this here to teach me, and how can I use what I've just been through to like grow, evolve, and in turn help others?
Totally agree. Like, why is not a spiritual question.
Mhm.
Like, finding out the why of something doesn't help you. Like, insight doesn't create transformation. It's about what and how questions, like you said, right? Like, what next steps can I take, or how can I use this opportunity to grow? That's how you really transform. Totally agree.
So, say individuals are feeling stuck, but they have this like dream they want to turn into reality. How do you believe, like, what are some good steps we could take to start shaping the lives we desire for ourselves in a moment where we are feeling pretty stuck?
I love that question so much. So there's some exercises that I walk people through, and I walk people through it in the book too. So this is all in the book. To get, first of all, to get really clear on your vision, right? Because you have to have that North Star. That's like the first step. And the second step is figuring out how to get from where you are now, like navigating that gap, to where you want to be. And I walk you through a bunch of exercises in the book, but a simple thing to do is like create a list of everything that you would make, that would make you rate each area of your life a 10 out of 10. And I break down the areas in the book. There's 7 different ones. And then for each of those, be like, okay, what's a step that I can take right now to move me in that direction? Because there's always a step that you can take, right? Like if you're saying there's nothing I can do, you're just not thinking creatively enough. And then as you start to take that step, then the next thing you need to do is just like trust, right? Because it's not up to you to figure out the how. The universe will figure out the how. And as you start on your path, as you take that one step available and then the next step, the right people will be put on your path to help you. New tools will be available. Doors will appear that weren't even there and open for you. We think that we need to go from A to B to C to so on, but the universe can take you from A to Z in ways that you couldn't even imagine. But you have to have a vision and you have to take steps in the direction, right?
Mhm.
That's like the one thing The Secret missed, is it's like,
Yeah. The
it
action.
made all these people think like, oh, you just have to like have your vision and then you just kind of like kick back and relax, and like the universe is this genie in a bottle. But you have to take steps because it creates momentum, and
Mhm.
it like moves the universe. It's like
Yeah.
it's a co-creation with the
Yeah.
universe.
A couple things, like individuals maybe listening, they're like, it's this huge mountain I want to climb. I don't know how exactly to get to the top. What we're saying here is just take that first step and have faith that after you take that first step, you'll be given information, resources, connections that will help you take that second, third, fourth, and on and on and on. But just focus on that first step right in front of you.
Yeah, because there's always something you can do right now with the tools you have available. And like, so many people are like, oh, like I need the money, or I need the connections, or I need the whatever. And it's like, that's all going to come and fall into place. But like right now, like maybe you can, I don't know, like if you're trying to find your perfect partner, like maybe you can join a dating app. Maybe you can say yes to an invitation. Maybe you can, whatever. If you want to like a different job, like maybe you just do some research on
Mhm.
like what you would like to do. Like it doesn't have to be a massive step, but like do something. Put
Yeah.
yourself in motion.
Yeah. Start motion, energy and motion, emotions. Take that first step and just you'll feel a shift once you start to take action, and it will cause momentum. We both love Dr. Joe Dispenza, and I sit in a lot of his morning meditations, a guided meditation that I'll listen to on, say, Spotify. And he believes in, living for a vision of our future instead of a memory of our past. And he says one of the best ways to achieve that desired future is to pair an elevated emotion with a clear intention. So you
Mm.
get that vibe, get that emotion up, and hold that vision and start walking toward it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like how you bring it into reality, right? You have to feel the emotions. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. You have to feel the emotions of what it would feel like to have it, and like feel gratitude as if you already have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, how will I feel when this becomes a reality? And when you name that emotion, how can I feel more of that in this moment? So that you're in the, if we talk quantum, right? The science you bring into this, Kris, is like you need to be a vibrational match for the reality you're looking to bring into your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And like embody it as well, like in your day-to-day life. Like I just had a client recently that was like, I want to act as if I'm a millionaire, but like I can't go have that expensive coffee. I have to get like $1 coffee or whatever, like bottle of wine. It's like, okay, but like I like walked him through this meditation where he was like imagining he had it. And it's like, how would that person carry themselves? How
Mm,
would they talk?
yeah.
Who would they surround themselves with? How would they spend their time? Like, what books would they be reading? Like, you can put
Yeah.
yourself into your future state, and all of that helps just increase the magic of the universe.
Yeah. And even like, where would that person be hanging out? Maybe there's a 5-star lobby you could go read a book in.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Because you're probably going to meet someone there more likely than at that other coffee shop.
Yeah. So true. So, Kris, as we begin to wrap up, if you could leave our listeners with one powerful truth you've discovered about healing and transformation, what would it be?
I love that question. I would say that we're all in this together. Everyone you meet is a reflection of you. And so many people out there are like fighting for change. But the way you heal a sick society or a hurt world is by healing yourself first. And then you can rise up and you become this beacon for everyone else. And they're like, hey, what's Lauren doing? Lauren's looking good these days, right? And then you can like offer people a helping hand to lift them
Yeah.
up. Um, but you can't like force change on people.
Mm.
You have to be the change yourself. You have to heal from the inside out. And then as you heal your inner world, your outer world heals as well.
Wow, so beautiful. You can't make someone change who doesn't want to change, but you can be an example.
Yeah, exactly.
Kris, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Change Your Mind with Kris is my handle on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. Kris is spelled with a K. And then krisashley.net is my website. You can find a lot there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, sharing your story, your wisdom. You are exceptional, and I'm so grateful to be connected.
Thank you, Lauren.